I'll send the money, I promise.
What would you do if your husband kissed your half-sister inside the home you paid for? For Amara Ndlovu, a devoted South African nurse, it took just 7 days to lose everything she'd worked for and everyone she thought she could trust. She gave $25,000 to the man she loved for a fresh start.
We will let them
Instead, it became the beginning of her nightmare. But what no one expected was that Amara would rise, not with vengeance, but with silence. Because the truth? Her husband didn't just cheat. He stole her identity, faked her signature, and used her savings to build a future with someone else. Until one live stream changed everything. In front of hundreds, Amara exposed the fraud, the lies, and the betrayal, using nothing but screenshots, bank records, and cold, steady words. That video sparked the Marcus Silent Fire movement and brought justice without ever raising her voice. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever been called crazy just for loving too deeply, this story is for you. I'd love to know. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments so I can say hello personally. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting long shadows on the linoleum floor. Somewhere down the hall, a heart monitor blipped in slow, stubborn rhythm. Flatline, then pulse. Flatline, then pulse. Amara sat slouched in the break room, her scrubs wrinkled, her body a map of fatigue. A half-eaten granola bar rested beside her phone. Her fingers hovered over the screen, hesitant. Then the device buzzed. 2:07 a.m. Cohen. She stared for half a second too long before answering. Cohen? Her voice cracked like dry paper. Amara! Thank God, listen! His voice stumbled out, breathless, too fast. It's happening. The house, the Lakeview property. I need 25 grand by morning or we lose the down payment. This is our shot, our future. The name Lakeview slid through her mind like a half-remembered dream. They'd talked about it months ago. A 2-bedroom, sunlight-washed cottage near the edge of a man-made lake, all glass and silence. She'd drawn little sketches of it in the margins of her notebooks during night shifts. He'd called it their fresh start. Amara's hand shook as she reached for the photo taped to her water bottle, an image of her and Cohen on their wedding day, smiling, younger, wrapped in promises. I know it's late, Cohen's voice cracked, but we've come this far, haven't we? You said you wanted a home. I'm giving us one. I can't do it without you. She pressed the phone tighter against her cheek. The hum of the vending machine buzzed in her ear. How much? 25,000. Wire it to the escrow agency, Z Agency. I'll text you the account. But babe, just send it before 6 a.m. or we lose the hold. She winced. Cohen, that's all we have. That's the rent money, too. I know, but after this, no more renting, no more struggle. We'll have our own place, just us. The word us hit differently at 2 a.m. It sounded like a lifeboat. Amara opened the shared account. He still managed the details, but she had access. It blinked up at her. $25 through $78.16. 5 years of overtime. Skipped coffees, second-hand shoes. She hovered for a long time. Her thumb trembled above the send button. I love you, Amara. Her breath caught. I'm doing this for us, he added. She entered the details he sent. Routing number, Z Agency, confirm amount, confirm identity. She paused. Z Agency, is that a real firm? A beat. Then he replied, a little too fast. Yeah, my buddy works there. Just don't reach out directly. They move fast, you know? Her chest tightened. The air in the break room suddenly felt too dense, but she hit send. The money vanished from the screen in a blink. Outside the break room, the corridor lights flickered. Somewhere, a patient groaned. A cart rolled past with a squeaky wheel that sounded almost like laughter. Amara sat back, eyes closed. She whispered, "We finally have a home." The call ended. Her phone screen went dark. She leaned her head back against the peeling paint, eyes fluttering shut. By the time she opened them, the first light of dawn was seeping into the hospital windows, that sickly, blue-tinged hue that makes everything look bleached and cold. She stood slowly, her bones cracking like tired floorboards. She didn't notice the quiet chill that slid into her chest. Not yet. But the camera would linger on her face just a moment longer, bathed in sterile light, holding a photo of her wedding, like a relic from a war not yet declared. And outside, the sun rose over a city that didn't care what she'd just done. She walked back to the ICU. Her shift wasn't over, but something inside her had just begun unraveling. The air smelled of rain and road dust when Amara parked by the curb of Lakeview Street. The sky carried that strange in-between color. Neither blue nor gray, just the faint pallor of something undecided. In her hands, a bouquet of white lilies trembled slightly in the morning breeze. She had wrapped them carefully, tied with a soft silver ribbon, and tucked a small card inside, for our new beginning. Her pulse beat beneath her skin, quiet but insistent, the kind that almost drowns out sound. She stepped out of the car, the asphalt still slick from last night's drizzle. In the distance, she saw the house Cohen had described, number 108, the one by the corner where the lake glinted faintly through the trees. The house looked new, too new. White paint still smelled raw in the air. The curtains shimmered in the window like lungs breathing. She smiled. For a moment, there was only the hum of a dream being realized, a future, finally tangible. She could already imagine Cohen's arms around her, the soft laugh he always made when he said, "See, I told you we'd make it." Her shoes clicked on the driveway. The lilies brushed her wrist, leaving a faint trace of pollen. Then came the sound, laughter. Two voices overlapping, light, intimate. She froze. The laughter wasn't muffled. It was the kind that comes from somewhere completely at ease. Her eyes moved to the open window upstairs. A glimpse of fabric, pale blue. A woman's voice. Familiar, almost haunting. She told herself not to overthink. Maybe someone visiting, maybe a decorator, a realtor, anything that wasn't what it sounded like. She stepped closer. The front door stood half open. She could see into the hallway. Marble tiles, golden light, a mirror reflecting a cluster of white roses on the console. Everything looked too perfect, too staged. She called softly, "Cohen?" Her voice died inside the house. No answer. Then footsteps. A man appeared at the top of the stairs. Cohen, bare-chested, wearing only a pair of dark sweatpants. His hair was tousled, his face caught in surprise that quickly turned to something colder. Behind him, a woman's silhouette came into view, Zola, her half-sister, wrapped in a silk robe the color of pale champagne, her hair loose. On her left hand, a ring glimmered under the light. Time collapsed. Amara felt her throat tighten, but no sound came. The bouquet slipped slightly from her grasp, petals brushing the floor. Cohen's voice came down the stairs, sharp and low. "You shouldn't be here." It wasn't anger, it was dismissal. Her fingers clenched around the stems. "What is this?" Zola leaned against the stair rail, smiling faintly. "It's exactly what it looks like." The card fell from the bouquet. For our new beginning. The ink smudged under a drop of water she hadn't noticed was her own tear. Cohen walked a few steps closer. His eyes were empty, as if he were already somewhere else entirely. "Between us, it's over, Amara. You should have known that by now." Her voice trembled. "You used our money, every cent." He looked away. "It was mine, too." Zola's tone was a whisper dipped in sugar. "Maybe you should focus on your job, Amara. Hospitals need people who know how to heal others, even when they can't heal themselves." The words sliced through the quiet. Amara's breath came shallow. Her gaze drifted past them, to the living room beyond. New furniture, fresh flowers, framed photos she didn't recognize. And then, her eyes stopped at the mantel. There, among glossy pictures of Cohen and Zola, stood a contract folder labeled Lakeview Lease Agreement. Something inside her cracked. She turned to leave, the lilies dangling loosely, brushing against her thigh like ghosts. Her vision blurred, the edges of the house distorting as though underwater. Outside, the sun hit her face with cruel brightness. Her reflection in the car window looked like a stranger, pale, trembling, with the remains of love clutched in her fist. She didn't remember dropping the bouquet, only the sound it made when it hit the pavement, a soft, wet thud. The lilies scattered, petals folding in slow surrender. A car sped by, wind lifting the flowers into the air before pressing them down into the dirt. White against gray, life against ruin. For a moment, she just stood there. The air smelled of paint, perfume, and betrayal. Behind her, the door closed. She didn't turn around. The silence was absolute except for the faint hum of the lake nearby, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She got into her car and sat very still. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She could call him again. She could scream, demand, threaten. But what good would it do? He had chosen. The line between love and cruelty had dissolved, leaving her in the middle of something shapeless and cold. The lilies were gone now, scattered across the curb. She started the engine. The hum of the motor filled the emptiness, a fragile rhythm holding her together. Driving away, she saw in the rearview mirror a single petal stuck to the windshield, fluttering with each gust. She let it stay there. It was the only witness left. The road curved around the lake, and sunlight caught on the water's surface like shards of glass. Every reflection looked like the life she'd just lost. At the stoplight, she thought she saw her own face reflected in a passing window. Calm, unrecognizable. Not Amara, the nurse, or the wife, or the believer. Just someone emptied out. When she reached the hospital parking lot, the petal finally lifted from the windshield and vanished into the wind. She watched it go, her chest aching with something too deep for words. She sat in silence until the dashboard clock blinked 11:42. The world kept moving. People came and went. Ambulances arrived. Someone laughed in the distance. The ordinariness of it all made her dizzy. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Cohen. Only 3 words. Don't make trouble. The tremor in her hands returned, but she didn't reply. She deleted the message, then the entire thread. It was like erasing fingerprints from a crime scene. Still, his voice stayed in her head. Don't make trouble. As if she were the one who had done wrong. Her eyes stung. She bit the inside of her lip until she tasted metal. Then, through the glass of the hospital door, she saw her reflection again. Same tired eyes, same unguarded hope that refused to die. She realized she hated that about herself, the part that still waited for explanations, apologies, impossible rescues. A nurse passing by said hello, but Amara couldn't answer. Her throat was dry. She turned away. The rest of the day blurred into motion. Patients, charts, monitors. But inside, a single image repeated itself like a haunting. Zola's diamond ring glinting under sunlight, Cohen's hand brushing her shoulder, the sound of laughter floating down the stairs. Hours later, when she finally left her shift, the sky had turned a bruise-colored purple. She parked by the roadside near her apartment and stared at the darkening horizon. A gust of wind rattled the streetlight. In the glow beneath it, she saw something white pressed against her tire. One of the lilies, flattened, streaked with mud. She knelt, picked it up carefully. The stem bent, but the petal still held its curve, fragile and stubborn. For the first time since morning, she let herself cry. Not loud, just enough for her chest to shake, enough for her breath to sound human again. The wind carried the faint scent of flowers, faint but unmistakable. Lilies mixed with rain. She whispered to herself, never again. The vow hung in the air like a pulse. In the distance, thunder murmured. Somewhere behind the clouds, the same rain that washed Lakeview's perfect driveway was coming for her city. She didn't move. She stayed kneeling beside the crushed flower until her knees hurt, until her palms felt the chill of the concrete, until her heart began to slow. Then she stood. The streetlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. The kind of flicker that feels like the world blinking. Amara turned toward her apartment building. Each step echoed with quiet finality. Inside, she placed the broken lily in a glass of water. Its reflection shimmered faintly under the kitchen light. Bruised, bent, but still breathing. And for a fleeting second, in that fragile reflection, she saw something she hadn't seen in years. The outline of a woman who could survive this. But survival has a cost, and she hadn't paid it yet. Outside, the rain began again, soft, deliberate, as if the sky itself was mourning with her. She turned off the lights. In the dark, the flower glowed faintly white, like a heartbeat refusing to die. The eviction notice fluttered in the wind, half torn, one corner peeled from the tape that clung to her apartment door. Amara stood staring at it, the ink bleeding from last night's rain, the words still legible enough to wound. Immediate action required, non-payment of rent, 3-day notice to vacate. She didn't blink, just stood there, keys frozen in her hand. The hallway smelled of rust and old bleach. Someone's radio echoed faintly behind a closed door. A preacher's voice saying, "God tests us through storms." She touched the paper gently like it might shatter. The lock clicked when she turned the key, but the room that opened wasn't home anymore. The air was stale. Her ficus in the corner had curled in on itself. Silence thickened every corner. She dropped her bag, walked straight to the kitchen. Her laptop blinked on. Her hands typed before her thoughts caught up. She opened the banking app. The shared account showed. Closed. 0 balance. The transaction history was gone. She blinked once, then again. Amara called the bank. The hold music played a slow, cheerful piano. Her mouth was dry. Finally, a voice. "I'm sorry, Ms. Ndlovu, but the account was terminated last week by the primary account holder." Her voice barely came out. "But that's my account, too. My name's on it." "Correct," the agent said politely. "But as the secondary account holder, you were not notified of the closure. You will need to open a dispute in writing." She ended the call without replying. Her phone buzzed immediately after. Cohen. She stared at it as it rang, vibrating slowly across the countertop like something alive. She answered. Her voice held a crack. "Why did you close it?" Cohen sounded bored. "Because I don't owe you anything, Amara. I already told you. We're done." Her breath hitched. "You promised." He cut her off. "I promised a lot of things. That's life. Don't call me again." The line went dead. She stood there, phone still to her ear. Her fingers trembled. Another buzz, a video call, Zola. She answered before she knew why. Zola's face filled the screen, glowing with soft lighting, lipstick fresh, hair wrapped in silk, the same diamond ring still on her finger. "Well, that escalated fast," she smiled. "I hear you've been kicked out. Shame." Amara said nothing. Zola adjusted her robe like a queen arranging her crown. "Listen, I sent over some paperwork, just a simple release form, legal stuff. Basically says you won't interfere with our lives anymore. You sign it, we all move on." Amara's throat burned. "You think I'm going to help you erase me?" Zola laughed. "Oh, sweetheart, you were erased the second he met me. You just didn't notice." Her voice dipped into a syrupy whisper. "You don't want to be sued, do you? Slander, harassment, financial interference, all very messy." Then she blew a kiss toward the camera. The call ended. The room felt colder, her limbs heavy. She sat on the floor. That's when the tears came. Not the loud, crashing kind, just silent rivers, down her cheeks, her neck, into the collar of her shirt. She reached for her phone again, pulled up her mother's page. The latest post read, "Amara Ndlovu's jealousy nearly ruined our family. Prayers for Zola and Cohen as they try to build peace despite the chaos." Below it, comments, some from cousins, some from church friends, others she didn't even know. She always had a temper. Cohen tried to love her, but she pushed him away. Zola deserves happiness. So sad how bitterness destroys people. Amara dropped the phone. The screen cracked on impact. She picked it up, thumb sliced slightly by a splinter of glass. Blood beaded. Her gaze locked on it, so red, so alive. That night, she returned to work. Back in the emergency room, fluorescent light overhead, monitors blinking, heartbeats rising and falling. She pushed through the shift like a ghost, her smile hollow, her steps automatic. But pain fogs everything. And in the haze of fatigue and heartbreak, she made a mistake. Wrong patient ID, wrong dosage. The supervisor caught it. A code blue was avoided. Barely. After the resuscitation, they called her into the office. "Amara, this isn't like you," Dr. Lopez said, voice tight. "But this is serious. We're placing you on temporary leave while we investigate." She tried to explain, but her voice didn't sound right, like it belonged to someone watching from far away. "I'm sorry," was all she said. Outside, she sat in her car for over an hour, didn't start the engine, didn't move. The rain began again. Fat drops against the windshield. Her breath fogged the glass. Her fingers gripped the wheel. The radio turned on automatically, a soft piano intro. Then a voice. Velvet. Weary. Starting over sometimes means losing everything first. She closed her eyes. The song kept playing. The street lamps blurred in her tears. She thought of the lilies, the photo, the call at 2:07 a.m. All of it felt like another life, one she wasn't sure she ever lived. Then something shifted. Not rage, not despair. Something quieter. She opened her eyes. The world hadn't changed, but she had. And that would be enough. For now. She started the engine. But she didn't drive. She just sat there. The heater humming, the rain still falling. Inside that silence, her mind whispered a different kind of prayer. Not for peace, not for revenge, just for clarity, just for truth. Outside, the rain blurred everything, but inside the car, something sharp had finally started to take shape. A woman alone. A woman bleeding, but a woman still standing. And somewhere deep beneath the wreckage of promises and petals and glass, something was beginning to glow. Not hope, not yet, but the memory of what it used to feel like. And sometimes, that was enough to start with. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday morning, nestled between bills and discount flyers, innocuous in its crisp white disguise. Amara held it in her hand as she stood barefoot by the front door, a chipped mug of black coffee warming her palm. The paper smelled faintly of printer ink and lavender detergent. Her name was printed on the front. Amara Ndlovu, spelled correctly, centered neatly. She didn't open it right away. The kettle hissed. Her coffee had gone cold. The apartment was quiet now, emptier somehow, like even the air had moved out. She sat at the kitchen table, the letter resting beside her, unopened, heavy in its stillness. When she finally tore it open, the words fell out like stones. "Dear Ms. Amara Ndlovu, this is a courtesy reminder regarding your co-signature on the Lakeview 1-8 property rental agreement. Your portion of the upcoming quarterly payment is due on the 10th. Kindly remit payment to Zed, Agency Escrow Services, to avoid default." She blinked, reread it, then read it again. Her heart slowed. Her name wasn't just on the envelope, it was on the lease. She didn't understand at first. Her fingers fumbled for her phone, screen cracked but still functional. She opened the email archives, the banking app, the PDFs Cohen had sent her that night. Her pulse quickened as she cross-referenced names, routing numbers, account holders. It was her name, her tax ID, her income report, her employment verification, all tied to Lakeview 108. She had never signed a lease, never been in that office, never spoken to a single agent. And yet there it was, her signature. Flowing, perfect, just like it looked on her hospital badge. She stood up too fast. Her chair scraped the floor with a sharp screech. She needed air. Outside, the wind was sharp, the sky a flat, blank white. A dog barked 2 streets over. Her boots thudded on the pavement as she walked with no destination. Just motion, just noise to drown out the rising tide inside her chest. She found herself at the library, a place with printers, scanners, internet that worked. She pulled records, property listings, tax registries, public notaries, and slowly, like smoke clearing from a shattered window, a picture emerged. Z Agency, the same name Cohen had given her that night. She found the business listing. The address led to a bland building near the warehouse district. Registered owner Zola Ndlovu. She stared at the screen for a long time. She was never meant to discover it. They had made her the legal co-tenant, used her income to qualify, used her ID to lock it in. And the $25,000? The initial deposit went to Z Agency, right into Zola's brokerage account. Her throat closed up. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was procedural, documented, signed, sealed. She printed the records, 17 pages, stamped and stapled, The printer buzzed like a blade in a quiet room. The papers trembled in her hands. Outside, she stood in the wind again, not moving, just holding them. The leaves swirled around her feet. A gust caught the corner of one page, lifted it, twisted it from her fingers. She chased it down, boots slapping the wet sidewalk. The page landed against a wrought iron fence, shivering against the bars. She stared at it, her own name next to Zola's, next to Cohen's. In that moment, fear left her. What settled in its place was something colder, cleaner. Not rage, clarity. For the first time since everything began, she knew exactly what had been done to her. And that meant she could choose what came next. She returned home and laid the documents on her bed. She opened her laptop, created folders, made backups, every file saved twice, then uploaded. Her mind worked like a machine now, efficient, purposeful. She brewed fresh coffee, strong, no sugar. That night she slept, not well, but deeply. And when morning came, she rose early, showered, pressed her scrubs even though she had nowhere to wear them. She needed the ritual. Then she drove across town. The law office sat at the corner of 9th and Elridge, sandwiched between a tax service and a pawn shop. The sign on the door read, Langston Mwangi, Esquire. She had remembered his name from a case on the news. Fraud, real estate, the way he'd spoken. Calm, surgical. Inside, it smelled like old books and slow justice. He looked up as she entered. His suit was brown, his glasses crooked, but his eyes were sharp. "I don't take walk-ins," he said. Amara placed the folder on the desk. He looked at it, then at her, then opened it. 5 minutes in, he stopped reading. He looked up again. "Tell me what happened." She told him everything. Her voice didn't shake. She kept it flat, factual, like a nurse presenting a chart. When she finished, he leaned back, steepling his fingers. "They forged your signature, used your credit. They built a lie out of your name." Amara nodded once. He reached for his pen. "This isn't just betrayal," he said. "This is criminal." She watched his hand move across the page. He glanced up. "We're not going to scream. We're going to build. Let them hang themselves by their own threads." She didn't speak, but something in her chest unclenched. He slid a notepad toward her. "We'll start with 2 filings. Fraudulent use of identity. Contractual misrepresentation." She wrote her name. For the first time, she signed something for herself. She stood to leave. As she reached the door, he called out, "One more thing." She turned. "If they contact you again, don't engage. Forward everything to me, especially if they get nervous." She gave a small, bitter smile. Cohen gets loud when he's nervous. She left the office. The sunlight hit her face just as she stepped outside. Not warm, but not harsh either. She paused at the edge of the sidewalk where the city noise resumed. Cars, horns, life. In the reflection of the office glass, she saw herself. Hair tied back, eyes clear, shoulders square. Not the woman who cried over lilies. The one who had survived them. She walked away. Her phone buzzed 2 hours later. A message from Cohen. A photo of her with an ex from college. Captioned, "Guess you moved on quick." She didn't reply. She saved it. The next day, he sent another. A voice memo, drunk, angry, threatening. She saved that too. Evidence. All of it. She never answered. Silence, it turned out, was its own kind of power. That evening, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror. Her hands rested on the sink. She looked at her own eyes, really looked. The lines at the corners, the tight set of her jaw. Then she did something she hadn't done in months. She smiled, small, faint, but real. Outside, dusk fell slow and golden. Inside, the light from the hallway spilled across her face like a quiet benediction. Not forgiveness, but a beginning. The flower hadn't bloomed again, but the stem had held, and sometimes that was enough. She reached for her phone, not to scroll, not to cry, to start documenting. The story, the evidence, the paper trail. She was no longer part of their scheme. She was building something of her own, and this time the name on every page was hers alone. The legal pad in Langston Mwangi's hands filled slowly, each line carved in tight, deliberate strokes. Ink bled slightly into the page from his fountain pen, leaving faint shadows behind every word. He didn't speak for a full 5 minutes, just wrote, scribbled, underlined, circled. Amara sat across from him, spine straight, shoulders taut beneath her worn gray coat. Outside the window, the city exhaled. Horns in the distance, a train's low rumble, sirens weaving through it all like thread through fabric. The walls of the office were lined with books that smelled like time and dust. A clock ticked behind her, soft but insistent. Langston looked up. His glasses slid to the edge of his nose. He pushed them back with one finger. "Here's what we do." She didn't respond. She needed to listen now. Every word was a nail driven into a frame that might save her. "We filed 2 claims," he continued. "Fraudulent impersonation for the forged signature. Contractual coercion for the financial entrapment. But we don't shout it. Not yet. We document. We corner them with their own lies." She nodded. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was heavy with strategy. "I want copies of every transfer, bank statements, screenshots, and if you have any messages, texts, voicemails, emails, anything where they mentioned money, ownership, or exclusivity, I need those too." "They've sent things," Amara said softly. "Cohen messaged me last night, called me a traitor, accused me of playing the victim." Langston lifted an eyebrow. "Keep them. Every insult is a thread we'll pull until the whole fabric tears." She slid a flash drive across the table. "Everything I've saved, organized by date." He leaned back in his chair and let out a breath, something between amusement and respect. "You're thorough." "I was trained to track vital signs in seconds," she said. "Turns out betrayal has rhythms too." Langston smiled. "Let's let them dance a little longer. We'll cut the music when they're center stage." Amara blinked slowly, her breath catching at the weight of it. Not just a plan, a reversal, a dismantling. "Will I have to testify?" she asked. Langston shrugged lightly. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll fold before then. Depends on how stupid they are when the pressure starts." She stood to leave. The manila folder he'd given her was tucked under her arm like armor. She reached for the doorknob, but stopped. "Thank you." He nodded, then said quietly, "You're not the first woman they tried to silence, but you might be the last they underestimate." She walked out into the cold. The sun bounced off the windshield of her car like a slow, deliberate blink. She didn't put on sunglasses. She wanted to feel the sting. That night, she pored over her phone like it was a battlefield. Every screenshot, every timestamp, every call log. Her fingers moved fast, but her expression never changed. Eyes forward, shoulders down. She created folders, labeled every audio file, labeled every screenshot, dates, names, time of day, emotional tone. One voicemail in particular made her pause. Zola's voice, syrup thick and laced with mock concern. "Sis, I know things are hard, but come on. Don't embarrass yourself. We can be graceful about this, or it can get messy. You choose." Amara replayed it twice, then filed it under threats passive. The next morning, she walked to the post office. Certified mail. Return receipt requested. Langston had insisted. She sent 3 packages, one to the agency, one to the county clerk, one to Cohen's workplace. Each package included a formal notice of legal dispute and intent to file for fraudulent use of identity. The woman behind the counter scanned the labels, offered a practiced smile. "Anything fragile?" Amara shook her head. "Just someone's version of the truth." Outside, her phone buzzed. "Cohen." She stared at the name, then let it ring. It rang again. Then came the text. "Are you serious with this legal bullshit? You're making this worse for yourself." She didn't reply. 3 hours later, another message. "I can drag you too, you know. I have pictures. Don't push me." She saved it, backed it up, forwarded it to Langston. That evening, she posted a photo on her old Instagram account. A simple one. Taken years ago. Her in hospital scrubs, smiling beside a patient's room door, hair pulled into a tight bun, eyes tired but alive. She captioned it, "Some people forget who you are. That's fine. Just don't let them rewrite your name." The comments started slow, then multiplied. People from the hospital, old classmates, even a few strangers. "Still rooting for you, eh? We see you. Don't let them drown your voice. You got this." She turned off her phone. She sat in the dark, eyes wide open. In that silence, a new sound bloomed. Focus. 3 days later, Langston called. The agency responded. They're nervous. She didn't smile, but something flickered behind her eyes. We hold position, he said. Now we wait. But Amara wasn't built for waiting. She turned her attention elsewhere. Back to her garden balcony, long neglected. She swept dried leaves, watered dead stems, replanted the broken roots. Something about soil under fingernails felt truer than glass screens and paper trails. She printed photos of Lakeview, not for memories, for evidence, floor plans, deeds, tax maps. She pinned them to the corkboard above her desk. One night, she came across an old photo of her and Cohen. Him in a leather jacket, her in a yellow dress. It had been taken during a road trip to the coast. They were laughing. His hand rested on her thigh. Her eyes were closed. She ripped it in half, not in rage, in ceremony. That same night, she posted another photo, black and white this time. Her silhouette in a mirror, back turned, one hand reaching to zip up her dress. Caption: sometimes healing means dressing your own wounds. Cohen saw it, he called. She didn't answer. Instead, she screenshotted the missed calls. Langston wrote the final draft of the injunction that week. Temporary restraining order, preventing any asset transfer related to the Lakeview property, blocking Cohen and Zola from modifying lease terms, freezing the account tied to Z Agency until further notice. Amara signed the last page with a calm she didn't expect. Her name flowed across the line like ink from a sharpened memory. That night, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror again, this time in a simple white blouse, hair wrapped, no makeup, no armor. Just her. She whispered to her reflection, "Let them think I'm quiet," then turned off the light. Behind her, the street lamp flickered through the window. Pale gold fell across her jawline, tracing a soft edge of bone and resolve. She lay in bed without tears, without noise. But inside her chest, the silence had changed. It no longer suffocated. It carried weight, direction. The strategy was working, but the storm wasn't over. She knew Zola. She knew Cohen. They'd fight. They'd scramble. They'd try to twist the narrative. But she had learned how to hold a scalpel, and this time, the cut would be clean. The gold foil lettering shimmered under the street lamp, catching flecks of passing headlights like tiny sparks. Zola Estates, grand launch and engagement party. You're invited. The poster was everywhere, taped to cafe windows, pinned at crosswalks, shared across timelines, floating down social feeds like a parade of curated delusion. And there, beneath the swirling calligraphy, Zola's smiling face beamed next to Cohen's, his arm around her waist, his tie askew, her hand placed just so to flash the diamond like a weapon. Amara stood across the street from the event hall, one hand in her coat pocket, the other clutching her phone. The live stream had started. Hundreds watching already. Comments scrolled across the bottom of the screen in real time. Power couple. Stunning venue. This is love. She lifted her eyes to the building. Glass facade, faux marble pillars, string lights glowing warm and golden like halos for thieves. Inside, laughter spilled out with each opening door. Corks popped. Music swelled. She crossed the street. The velvet rope didn't stop her. The guard at the door glanced at her with vague recognition, then stepped aside. He didn't even ask for a name. She was already in their story. The foyer was a dream designed to erase guilt. Champagne towers, photo booths, flower walls. She moved through it like a shadow. Waiters passed with silver trays. Cameras flashed. Everyone glowed. Cohen stood near the center of the room, laughing with investors, glass in hand, cheeks flushed. Zola was on stage, speaking into a microphone, voice sugar-coated and confident. "We didn't just build a brand," she said. "We built a future, and I'm sharing it with the man who believed in me when no one else did." Applause rose like a wave. Amara walked past the photographers, past the buffet, past the carefully staged tableau of success. She stepped onto the stage, quietly. No announcement, no fanfare, just the sound of her heels on polished wood. Zola stopped mid-sentence. The room froze. Amara took the mic from her hand. The silence crackled. She turned slowly to face the crowd, every eye on her. Cohen's mouth opened slightly, his hand tightened around his glass. "I wasn't going to come," she said, her voice calm, steady. "But then I saw the invitation." She held up her phone, and I realized this wasn't just a celebration. It was a cover-up. Someone gasped. She pulled a folder from her bag. "This is the lease agreement for Lakeview 108. My name's on it. So is my social, my employment history, my income. I never signed it, but Zola did. And Cohen provided the documents." Zola took a step forward. "This is not the place." Amara cut her off. "You made it the place the moment you turned my life into your foundation." She held up the next paper. "This is the transfer receipt, $25,000, sent at 2:07 a.m. to Z Agency. Escrow, you called it." She looked directly at Cohen. "You remember that call, don't you? You said we were buying a home." His face twisted. "This isn't what you think." Amara turned to the crowd. "It's exactly what you think. They built their empire on fraud. They used me, my money, my identity." The live stream kept rolling. The comments stopped. Cohen stepped forward, voice rising. "She's bitter. She's obsessed." Amara didn't flinch. "I'm prepared to file with the state attorney. The paperwork's done. My lawyer's watching this stream right now." The room turned cold. She paused, let silence do its work, then leaned into the mic. "This house, this brand, this dream, you built it with my trust, and tonight it collapses with your lies." She handed the mic back to the stunned MC and stepped off the stage. Cohen stood frozen. Zola's smile cracked. Cameras continued flashing, but now it was lightning. As Amara walked past the champagne tower, someone dropped a glass. It shattered, the sound piercing and clean. She didn't look back. Outside, the air hit her like absolution, cold, honest. The crowd behind her erupted into scattered voices, whispers, someone calling Zola's name. The night had changed. But she didn't need to watch it fall. She had lit the match. That was enough. She kept walking. 1 block, 2, her heels steady, her breath slow, and then she stopped. Something in the air shimmered, not from the party, from memory. White petals on pavement, crushed, forgotten. She closed her eyes. That first bouquet, the card, the kiss Cohen gave Zola on the stairs, all of it looped back. But this time, the flashbulbs belonged to her, not for vanity, for truth. She kept walking. Behind her, the night unraveled, and somewhere far off, the sound of music died. But in her chest, something else played, quiet, deliberate, like the slow beginning of a reckoning. Not vengeance, something deeper. A woman's silence finally heard. The video went viral before morning. By 3:12 a.m., the clip had crossed 300,000 views. By sunrise, it was on every major platform. Hashtags lit up like fireworks, or Zola scam, or Cohen collapse, or silent fire. Someone had ripped the footage straight from the live stream, edited it with dramatic piano chords and flashing headlines. Others posted side-by-side comparisons. Amara's medical ID next to the forged lease, the wire transfer, her mic drop line about the house built on lies. Comment sections flooded. She was too quiet. Now I see why. They really thought they'd get away with it. Amara's the main character now. In some versions of the clip, someone had slowed the exact moment Cohen's smile vanished. That flicker of panic, his eyes darting, the champagne flute slipping an inch in his hand. Amara didn't watch the video. She didn't need to. She remembered every breath of that night. But her phone didn't stop buzzing. Langston texted first. "It's done. The net is tightening. Let them squirm." Then came the calls, not just from reporters or acquaintances, but from institutions. The state licensing board emailed to confirm receipt of the official complaint. Zola's real estate license was under suspension pending investigation. They used the word malpractice. It rang like a verdict. Langston sent another update. "The Department of Consumer Affairs is opening an inquiry. I've submitted the lease, your sworn statement, the financial trail, everything. They're in deeper than they thought." She stared at the message for a long time. Her chest didn't rise with triumph, only stillness, like after a storm surge, when all that's left is the wreckage and the silence. By noon, Zola Estates' investor page was taken offline. The company's Instagram, once glittering with filters and ambition, was scrubbed. Just a black square remained, no caption. That afternoon, news broke on Channel 12. The anchor's voice was perfectly modulated as she read, "A local real estate firm faces fraud allegations after evidence surfaced during a public engagement event last night. The alleged victim, Amara Ndlovu, a licensed nurse, claims her identity and savings were used without consent to secure a luxury property lease now occupied by her ex-husband and his fiancée. Investigations are ongoing. No names needed. The world already knew. Cohen was fired by the end of the week, not by email, by security escort. Someone filmed him being walked out of the glass tower he once bragged about. The same building he told Amara they'd move near after buying Lakeview. His badge was deactivated, his severance frozen. More hashtags bloomed. Men like Cohen, Chugger Trust, Isnadi funding source. Let women breathe. Zola was cornered next. Her brokerage office shuttered overnight. The landlord posted a sign on the door. Evicted. Breach of contract. Someone spray-painted thief on her car. Someone else filmed it. Amara watched none of it. Instead, she stood in the rain outside Lakeview, not hiding, just observing. From beneath her black umbrella, she saw movers carrying boxes out the front door. 2 men pulled a velvet couch through the threshold. Another loaded paintings into a van. Rain soaked the pavement, curling under their feet. The Just Engaged banner hung crooked from the porch light. One corner snapped. It flapped weakly in the wind, its letters bleeding where the ink had run. She spotted Cohen standing on the porch in a wrinkled shirt, hair matted, phone glued to his ear. He was yelling at someone, voice sharp, hands gesturing wildly. No one seemed to listen. Then Zola appeared. Her heels sank slightly into the wet grass. Her hair frizzed at the edges. She waved at one of the movers, then pointed to a box being mishandled. She looked up, spotted Amara across the street. Their eyes locked for one full second. Zola's jaw tightened. She looked away first. Amara didn't move. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just stood, the umbrella shielding her from the storm that Zola and Cohen had made themselves. She stayed until the porch emptied, until the door was slammed, until the last box disappeared into the van, until the Just Engaged banner finally gave up and tore from the wall, landing in a puddle near the curb. She watched it float, the ribbon unraveling, the words curling inward like secrets trying to hide. She turned and walked away. Her boots echoed on the wet sidewalk, rhythmic and calm. Back at her apartment, she peeled off her coat, placed the umbrella in the corner, and sat in the dark. A single lamp cast light across the floorboards, a warm patch in the hush. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. Then another text arrived, from a number she didn't recognize. It was a link, no words. She almost deleted it. But curiosity won. She tapped. The video opened. Grainy security cam footage. Cohen and Zola. In an argument. Loud. In public. Outside what looked like a strip mall. He was yelling. She was crying. She shoved him once. He grabbed her wrist. A security guard intervened. Amara stared at the screen. The video ended. She closed it. Deleted it. The collapse was no longer hers to witness. Their ruin was no longer hers to carry. Rain drummed gently against the window. She walked into the kitchen, lit a candle, not scented, just white wax, clean burn. She brewed tea, rooibos with cinnamon, held the cup close, let the heat kiss her lips, let the silence fill her lungs. Then she reached for the notebook where she kept track of every date, every step, every legal checkpoint. She wrote one line in the margin. They buried me with silence. I answered with fire. She placed the pen down, stood, walked to the mirror, the same mirror that once reflected fear, exhaustion, disorientation. Now it held her like a frame holds art. The black coat, the quiet mouth, the eyes that no longer looked for rescue, only reckoning. In the glass, she saw not victory, but clarity. She whispered, "Let them rebuild from the ashes they made." The candle flickered once, then stilled. Outside, the banner lay in the gutter. The rain carried it away inch by inch, letter by letter, until only one word remained visible: just. And then that too was gone. The waves didn't roar. They whispered. A low hush, constant and ancient, brushing the shoreline in slow repetition. Amara stood barefoot in the sand, her trousers rolled just above the ankle, the hem of her linen shirt dancing in the breeze. The ocean was gray and endless, but the light that fell across it was soft, gold-dusted like a forgiveness that arrived late, but real. She closed her eyes. The wind tasted clean. Salt, earth, new beginnings. Behind her, tucked into the dunes, sat a house small enough to hold quiet and large enough to never echo. A porch with 2 chairs, a kitchen that opened into a sunroom. Nothing extravagant, but every inch was hers, signed in her name. No co-signers, no deceit. When she exhaled, it felt like something truly left her. Not pain, not anger, just weight. She turned back toward the house, footsteps slow in the sand. Inside, a kettle hissed gently on the stove. A paperback rested open beside a steaming mug. On the coffee table, an envelope waited, her name printed neatly across it. She picked it up. From Langston. She opened it with steady fingers. 1 page, formal language. But the words struck with quiet thunder. Final settlement confirmed. Case closed. Full damages awarded. Public apology filed. Record expunged. You won. Her eyes didn't water. Her throat didn't tighten. Just breath. Just clarity. She placed the letter beside the mug and walked to the window. The sea shimmered. Then she pressed a button on her laptop. A recording began. Her voice, firm but soft, poured through the speakers into the room. The opening line repeated what she had whispered to herself for months. Sometimes silence is the loudest cry for justice. The podcast, Silent Voices, was no longer anonymous. In a few months, it had found its way into inboxes, circles, groups, first among nurses, then among women in finance, then strangers, men and women who had never known betrayal like hers, but recognized the shape of being silenced. Now her voice filled rooms she'd never entered. In episode 12, she spoke about how the system was designed to forget people like her, how the scars didn't scream. They whispered behind contracts, behind laughing photos, behind the phrase, "You're overreacting." Now she told it as a story, with names, with timestamps, with names redacted only when dignity asked her to. And then she'd close the episode with a truth carved from her bones. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It's what comes after you've given everything, and the world still turns away. But when you survive that, you come back not to scream, but to speak, and you speak so clearly, it terrifies them. She closed the laptop. Let the stillness settle again. The mug of tea steamed. The ocean reached further inland with each wave, like it was trying to touch her, trying to say, "You came through." She walked to her bookshelf, pulled out a new copy of her memoir, hardcover, $25,000 and the price of trust, her name on the spine, her photo on the flap, already a bestseller, already translated into 3 languages. Some had called it a survival guide. Others called it a revenge anthem. But it wasn't either. It was a remembering of petals on pavement, of ink on fake contracts, of silence that grew teeth. She placed the copy into an envelope, sealed it, wrote a single name on it, Maya, her former nursing intern who once confided in her about a controlling fiancé and never came back to work. She would mail it later. She always mailed them herself. Down the street, the post office worker already knew her face. When she returned to the porch, the sky had shifted. The light, more amber now, a softness that only comes before dusk. She sat in the chair, the wood creaked slightly under her weight, but not in protest, in acknowledgement. She reached for her phone, then paused. A new message, from an unknown number. The preview read, "Lakeview looks empty without you." Her fingers hovered. She tapped. It was a photo, taken from inside a car, angle low, blurry. Across the street, the Lakeview property stood vacant, the porch bare, windows dark, grass overgrown. In the corner of the image, a figure sat on the steps, shoulders hunched, face obscured. But the posture, slouched, defeated, was unmistakably Cohen. She stared at the photo for a long time. Then she pressed delete. She didn't need to return to wreckage to know it was real. She placed the phone face down and listened. The ocean whispered again, and suddenly she remembered something. A moment long ago, before Lakeview, before betrayal. A moment in med school when an instructor had told her that the heart can sometimes restart itself. No intervention, no defibrillator, just time and silence. She hadn't believed it then. Now she did. She stood, walked to the edge of the porch, let the breeze catch her collar. In the distance, the sun met the ocean like a slow bow. Light bent, water gleamed. And as the final wave kissed the sand, she whispered back, "Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's just refusing to be ruled by the pain." She stepped down. Her bare feet met wet earth. Each step toward the shoreline felt like remembering how to breathe again. And in that liminal space where sea met sky, where past dissolved into present, she smiled, not for what she had lost, but for what could no longer be taken from her. And somewhere in that vast, shimmering quiet, she became her own beginning. There are moments in life when everything we thought was solid slips beneath us, quietly, without warning. Trust fractures, love disappears. The people we once held closest become strangers, sometimes even enemies. And what remains is not just the silence they leave behind, but the echo of our own voice, asking how it ever came to this. But within that silence, something extraordinary begins, because there is a kind of strength that doesn't announce itself with noise or fury. It doesn't need revenge or spectacle. It simply refuses to break. It bends, it aches, it retreats inward, but it does not break. And in time, it rises. Sometimes justice doesn't look like courtroom speeches or loud victories. Sometimes it looks like surviving quietly, choosing dignity when cruelty tempts you to match its tone, rebuilding when no one is watching, healing in places that once held harm, and most of all, reclaiming the story. Not the one others wrote for you, not the one they spread behind your back, but the one you carry in your chest, the one etched into your bones, your breath, your stillness, the story of how you were buried but chose not to stay there. There is beauty in restraint, in not needing the world to clap when you heal, in simply knowing that what was stolen from you will never define what grows from you. That's the quiet power of people who have walked through fire and chosen not to burn others in return. Instead, they light a different kind of flame, one that guides, one that warms, one that says, "I lived through it, and I'm still here." So if you're listening to this now, wondering whether your voice matters, whether your silence was strength or surrender, let this be your reminder. Your pain was not weakness. Your survival was not accidental. Your quiet was not empty. It was power, held with grace. Thank you for being here. If this story resonated with you in any way, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment, share your reflection, or pass this along to someone who might need it. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel, because sometimes the quietest stories are the ones that need to be heard the most. Until next time, stay grounded, stay gentle, and above all, stay true.